Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we will be discussing some more questions on para jumbles that are generally asked in CAT and other management entrance examinations. We have already discussed a lot of questions and techniques on para jumbles in the previous videos. So I hope that all the techniques that are required by you should have been internalized and you have become thorough with the techniques. Now, in the future videos and in this present video and in future videos, we will be discussing the questions which are complicated, complex questions, so that your techniques become very much sound in your mind and you are able to find the answer easily without a problem. So this is the purpose of this video and in future videos. So the questions are going to be complex, slightly complex. So we will discuss all CAT level questions and all questions which are sometimes slightly higher than CAT, so that any type of questions when it comes in para jumbles, you are able to tackle those questions without a problem. So this is the thing, and I would like to emphasize that the basic skill that is required is the comprehension or the reading ability or your proficiency in English language. If you do not have the required proficiency in English language, maybe you will be facing some issues in para jumbles. Many students come to me and say that they are facing a lot of issues either in para jumbles and summaries, and when I talk to them, the basic issue is the English proficiency or the reading ability to the ability to read and understand high level English. So I request all of you to cultivate your reading ability, increase it so that your word power, vocabulary, comprehension skill, etc., so that your basic skill is developed. Only then the other skills are going to be useful to you in developing the skills to answer the para jumble questions for CAT and other management entrance examinations. One more thing, the previously the para jumble questions used to be not so tough, but nowadays they have progressively increased the level of para jumble and para summary questions, so that they also require a high level of proficiency and skill to attempt. So this also you need to keep in mind. Okay, so we'll first go to the first question. I'll give you some time to read the sentences and get the context, and then unjumble it to form a logical sequence. All right, so the context, once you understand the context, the problem becomes easy for you. The context is the definition of nations. The author is discussing why nations are so important, and he gives you the answer. It is because human beings have a tendency to classify ourselves or group ourselves into different, or organize ourselves into different groups, and based on different criteria, so that we can distinguish as us and them. Means one group is our group, and whoever is not within our group, it is them. So that kind of classification or segregation is a tendency or an instinct of human beings, and this is why nations are formed, because and nations are one such group. So this kind of segregation or classification of people into different groups based on several criteria is a tendency that people have, and one such grouping is on the basis of nations, and this is why nations are important, and we need to understand this. And it is also telling us wow, so many people, millions of people have died fighting wars on behalf of nations. So that is the another important thing about nations. So these are the things given. So once you read the sentences, one thing becomes very clear. You can easily form a sequence with three sentences. Which are the sentences which can form a sequence? First is the statement, what is so important about the existence of nations. So this one, and after that the author describes why this is important. He gives the answer. Throughout history, humans have formed groups of various kinds around criteria that are used to distinguish us from them. So this kind of tendency is there, and it is a historical fact. Human beings have all along been doing this kind of thing. So this tendency or instinct is there in human beings, and one such group is the nation. Such means various forms of groups. We are talking about different human beings forming different groups on different criteria or different kind of yardsticks, and one such grouping is on the basis of nations. So this is why BCA forms a very clear sequence. So the question regarding why nations are important, the historical fact of the human's tendency to form groups based on certain criteria, and one such grouping is on the basis of nations. So this is a very clear sequence. So now you go to the answers. What are the answers or options where you have this sequence? BCA, BCA. So you have 3 and 4. You have BCA as the sequence. Now the how to place E and D. E says when many thousands, indeed millions, have died in wars on behalf of their nations. It is talking about the millions of people who have died fighting wars with each other for their nations. So where it should come? Where it should come, this sentence should be an ideal opening sentence. Because why? Why it should be an opening sentence? See, in the next sentence we are asking what is so important. So the first we say that millions of people have died fighting with each other on behalf of their nations, or for people have died fighting each other for their nations. And it especially in the 20th century, because it is considered to be the cruelest of all centuries, because so many people have died during the first and second world wars. Both the wars were fought between nations, so people have died fighting for their nations. And then the question, what is so important about the existence, means what is so important about the existence of nations that people are dying in millions fighting for their nations. That is the implication. So that is why E should come before B. Then we give the answer. This is because of the tendency to form groups, and nations are one such grouping. Then you can say this is one of the reasons. That is E, B, C, A, D, means this is one of the reasons, means this tendency to form groups to classify people as us and them is the reason why it is important to understand what a nation is. So nation is one such grouping or classification. So that is this tendency of human beings is the reason why we have this thing. And it is further reiterated here, this tendency of humanity to divide itself into distinct and often conflicting groups. So this is again important, because we are talking about the conflict in option E. So the D is a concluding statement which says that this tendency of human beings to form themselves into different groups on is the reason nations are important, and sometimes these groups will conflict with each other. That is why these wars are happening. So EBCAD is a good answer. What about BCAED? So here what happens, we will talk about the first problem. If you opt for option 4, is that this so important. This word so is becomes relevant only if we talk about E first. Otherwise this word so is not really needed. You can even if it is an opening statement, what you can say, what is important about the existence of nations, that should be the statement. But here the question is, what is so important? So what is so important means, what is so important that people are dying for their nations. Why so? So means you have to first state that people are dying in millions for their nations. So that is why EBCAD. And another reason why, if you put E before D, what should happen? If you are putting the statement about people dying before D, as in option 4, then the next sentence is saying this is one of the reasons. Means these people dying in wars becomes one of the reason why it is important to understand what a nation is. It is not the correct answer. Actually, the reason is the tendency of humanity to divide itself into distinct groups. So that is why a BCAED will not be a proper answer, because of two reasons. One is this so, another is this word. This is one of the reasons. That is why we will stick with option 3, EBCAD. So this becomes the correct answer. You can see the logical arrangement here, and then look for any kind of inconsistencies in the logic once you arrange it like this. Many people have died in wars on behalf of their nations. especially in World Wars 1 and 2. What is so important about the existence? Then the answer is given. People have a tendency to form groups, and one such grouping is nation. And this is the reason why it is important to understand what a nation is. So a nation is a kind of a grouping, and this tendency of humanities dividing into distinct, often conflicting groups is the reason why nation is important. So this becomes a very good logical sequence. I hope this is clear to you. Now we'll go to the next question. All right, what is the context here? The context is the author is discussing about a particular kind of revolution that happened in the way people dress in Britain 50 years ago and now. And it says that 50 years ago, we could easily distinguish between a rich person and a poor person by seeing the way they are dressing. But now it is not possible unless you have a very keen eye to distinguish between expensive and exclusive clothes. So that is not really the cup of tea, or all the people may not be having that kind of ability. So that is why now it is not possible for an ordinary person to distinguish whether between a rich person and a poor person just by seeing the way a person is dressing. So this is the revolution the passage is talking about, and it says that this is actually the reason for this particular difference is also given. Then it talks about one revolution and other kind of things which we are not able to clearly understand. For example, the statement C. In statement C, we can see that the revolution he sought have already transformed. In a partial, incomplete, but visible way, several of the revolutions he sought. So there is a particular pronoun called he here, but the none of the sentences are mentioning any person. So our normal technique of connecting a pronoun with a noun is not going to work, because nowadays in most of the parajumble questions these traditional techniques are not going to work, because they will take the extract from the middle of a paragraph, or they will take some sentences from the middle of a passage and then give it as a parajumble, so that you will not be able to use this pronoun noun connection to form a logical connection. So that is a problem here, because nowhere in this particular any of the sentences we have any person's name mentioned, so we don't know who is this he being referred to. So maybe it is being taken from middle of a passage. So in the previous sentences some persons ideas were discussed, and it says that several of the revolutions he sought. So this person might be seeking certain revolutions, and the statement says that some of the revolutions he was actually seeking have already happened in a superficial and incomplete way. So in a superficial, incomplete but visible way, some of the revolutions this particular person was seeking has already happened. And then once you understand this, the next answer becomes visible. To take an example that is by definition superficial, again here you are saying that it has transformed the surface of life, means a superficial revolution. So this particular person might have been seeking for certain revolutions, but some of the revolutions he was seeking has already happened in a superficial but visible way. Superficial means not really deep or not really meaningful, but in a very on a very surface, on the surface kind of revolution, but visible. So that is why the next sentence, to take an example, that is by definition superficial. So again, going by the or connecting this sentence with this one, that is obvious and visible. Again, something here it says that there is a revolution that is very much visible. So again, it is a one that is obvious and visible, but seldom discussed. So it is not discussed at all. It is the revolution in dress in the second half of the 20th century. So these two sentences form a pair. So C and E, you can say it is a pair. So some particular person was seeking for a kind of a revolution, but many of the things he actually wanted to happen, they have already happened in a superficial but visible way. And the one example is the revolution in the dress code. So these are given, and what is that revolution? It is given in the further sentences. So it is talking about the revolution in the dress in the second half of the 20th century. Then it says that 50 years ago in Britain, the social class of people could be recognized from their clothing. It means we could easily understand whether a person belongs to the high class or a middle class or a low class just by seeing the way that person is dressing. So that is the next sentence. Then he says that today this is no longer true. So 50 years ago we could easily identify the class of a person by seeing his dress, but nowadays it is not true, except for a small minority of people who are able to identify expensive and exclusive dresses. So only those people who have a very good talent in identifying expensive dresses, only those people can understand the class of a person by seeing the dress. For most of the people or majority of the people, this is not true nowadays. So this is again the next sentence, and the reason for this is given in the last sentence. This is usually attributed to the growth of, means this is because of, usually attributed to the growth means this is because of the growth of mass production. Mass production means the garments are being produced on a very large scale, and the fact that the garment trade is the first route to the global economy for a global paid workforce of the developing world, means the lowly paid workers in the developing world, so their first route to participate in the global economy was to start a garment trade. Means what? The people in the developing world, they are actually manufacturing garments for people to wear in the developed world, and this is a mass production industry, as a result of which in Britain and many other places, all the people belonging to different social classes are dressing in the same manner, as a result of which we are not able to identify the class of a person just by seeing the way he is dressing. So this is the meaning. So CEADB becomes very, very clear. So this is how you have to arrive at the answers CEADB. Now, here the main issue is understanding this C and E, because other things, yes, ADB you can easily say 50 years ago it was not possible, now it is possible, this is because of. So EA DB, it is you are able to form a sequence, but C and E, you should not look for the connection of this particular pronoun he with the noun which is not provided in the passage. So you have to assume that this is taken from the middle of a paragraph, these 5 sentences, and given to you, so that something earlier might have been discussed. So this sentence T is a continuation of that. So that is why the person's name is not appearing here. Then comes C, then the sequence is forming. So that is why CEADB will be the correct answer. You go see the rearrange sentences, then you will the logic will become very clear to you, if at all you have any doubts even now. So this sentence is connected to this sentence, that superficiality of the revolution. Then the revolution in dress code, so it is talking about the dress code here, the social classes, the difference of the social classes in dresses. And now what is the revolution? Now this is not possible, or we are not able to understand that kind of or distinguish between social classes from the way people dress, and the reason is given here. So very clearly the logic is flowing from C to E, E to A to D, D to B. So this is the sequence. I hope this is clear. Now we'll move to the third question. What is an emulator? People who copy somebody, people who are copying, that is, they are called emulators, or people who are inspired by one person and they copy the actions of that person, they are called emulators. Anarchist thinkers who are not traditional, or thinkers who are thinking in some non-traditional, non-conformist and explosive and ideas, they are called anarchist thinkers. Anarchy basically means a lack of a rule by anybody, or somebody who is not interested to be ruled or governed by anybody. Such a person is known as an anarchist. So person who is a revolutionary, who is not going to bow down to uh, traditional thinking or orthodox thinking, such person is are known as anarchist thinkers. The spectrum of educational ideas means in the field of educational ideas. Rationalist education means reasonable, or education that is based on reason and logic. That is rationalist education. Secular means it is free from religion. So education that is free of religion, education that is based on reason and logic, that such kind of education is called secular rationalist education. Conscription, enrolling people for compulsory military service is called conscription. Means whenever in olden days, whenever wars used to happen in many countries, their standing military or standing army will be very less, the number will be very less. So whenever there are any wars, the normal people are conscripted into the army, or they have to compulsorily serve in the army. So that is called conscription. Speculations means thinkings. So once you read the passage, the context will become clear. Basically, it is talking about an educational, rationalist educational thinker called Ferrer. He was from Spain, and he established a school in Barcelona in 1901. And he had a lot of radical ideas. And just like Leo Tolstoy, he also had a lot of radical ideas or modern ideas. Because of his modern ideas and radical thinking, he inspired many others to think in same lines, and he because of his radical thinking, he aroused the enmity of the church. Means the church became inimical to him, or the because he was not a person who was following the religious form of education, or he was having a secular rationalist education, means non-religious kind of education. So the church became inimical to him. And then when the Spanish government was started compulsorily recruiting people to the army for a particular war in Morocco, there was a street battle in Barcelona, and he was held responsible even though he was not present at that particular place. So these are the things given. So basically it is talking about this educationist, or a modern school movement, the founder of the modern school movement called Ferrer, and where he established this first school, what was his ideas, and how he inspired emulators and got the wrath of the church, and finally how he was implicated or held responsible for certain riots that took place in Barcelona. So these are the things given. So first look, if you are not able to clearly see a logical sequence for the entire set of sentences, first look for sequences. So what is the thing that you can first understand? Ferrer opened his school. This is included. So here the name Francisco Ferrer is introduced in this particular statement, the founder of the modern school movement. These include, for example, the speculations of the speculation means thinkings or teachings or spot. Here Leo Tolstoy on the school he started at Yasnaya Polya. So we are talking about a Russian educator called Leo Tolstoy and that of a Spanish educator who founded the modern school movement. So this is a statement where the protagonist or the main person in this particular passage is introduced. So this sentence we can say, then you can say he where he opened his school. So E and C will be a sentence pair. So he opened his school in Barcelona in 1901, aiming at a secular and rationalist education. So that is something you can understand. Then he inspired emulators in several countries and aroused the enmity of the church. He means your Ferrer. So here Ferrer, he. And when the Spanish government called for conscription, he was held responsible. So maybe he was held responsible for this particular street battle, even though he was not present because he was inimical to the church or the church was having lot of enmity towards him because he was a secular and rationalist thinker. So the church obviously being a religious institution which in those days they used to hold lot of influence within the government and administration, so they were very much inimical to him, so they implicated him in this particular street battle. So that should be the logic here. So we can say A will be the next sentence and the next sentence will be D, because first we talk about the speculations of Leo Tolstoy, etc., and Francisco Ferrer, the founder of the modern school movement. So whenever this kind of sentences come, you can see that you can very well be sure that this is the statement that introduces the person. So that is why E becomes a statement which introduces him. Then what he did, he opened his first school in Barcelona and aiming at a secular rationalist education. So then he, because of his thinkings and all, he inspired a lot of emulators in several countries, and this became, and the church became inimical to him. And since the church became inimical to him, maybe because it is not directly given here, but we should know that in those days the church had a lot of influence within the government. So that is why, that must be the reason why when Spanish government started recruiting soldiers compulsorily for participating in the war, there were street battles and he was held responsible even though he was not present. That is why we have to first state A, then state D. So ECAD becomes a sequence. Now our problem is where to put B. Radically different as it is from the history of education as taught, as it is. What is this it? We don't know. So this again is a problem that you are going to face, because nowadays I told you many passages are taken, or many paragraphs or para jumble questions are taken from the middle of a passage where something prior might have been stated. So you have to assume that this must be something that has been stated prior to the statement. So what, we don't know what is this it. Radically different as it is from the history of education as taught to student teachers. So this particular theory regarding education might be radically different from the traditional theory taught to student teachers. This approach helps us to locate the anarchist thinker. So this approach means whatever approach we had discussed previous to this, which is we don't know, that will help us to locate the anarchist thinkers in the field of education idea. So with this approach we can understand that who were the non-traditional thinkers in the field of education in those times. So that becomes the first sentence. Then we talk about the non-traditional thinkers, Leo Tolstoy and Francisco Ferrer. So where we can put B can be put here. So we will say that this kind of approach that is different from the traditional approach that is generally taught to the student teachers, this approach is helping us to and identify who were the non-traditional thinkers in the field of education. Then these include, means the non-traditional thinkers include the teachings of Leo Tolstoy and the that of Francisco Ferrer. So BE. Then we talk about Ferrer opening in a school. Then about the how he became an enemy of the church, and because he became an enemy of the establishment, when government started conscription, there were some battles and he was held responsible for it. So this is the logic. BECAD will become the logic. So option 4 is the answer. So this again is not very simple. All the see nowadays whatever questions we are going to discuss from now on will all be complicated questions, not very simple. So you have to do you have to really approach the problem seriously and analyze minutely. Only then you will be able to arrive at the answer. So just look at the rearranged passage so that you will get the clear logic. Radically different as it is from the history of education as taught to the student teacher. So whatever we were, the paragraph was discussing prior to this, it is that approach is different from the conventional method regarding the history of education taught to student teachers. This approach is, however, helping us to locate the non-traditional or anarchist thinkers, and these anarchist thinkers included the speculations of Tolstoy and that of Francisco Ferrer. So this kind of approaches. So this it is not the anarchist thinkers. These include means the approaches or the kind of non-traditional thinking include the speculations of Tolstoy and that of Francisco Ferrer, the founder of the modern school movement. And Ferrer opened his school in 1901, secular rationalist education. His purpose was to form a secular nationalist education, and he inspired emulators, but he became an enemy of the church. When the Spanish government called for conscriptions, he was held responsible. So BECAD becomes a clear sequence. So this is how you arrive at the sequence. So I hope this is clear to you, and we have got some learning points in these videos. One thing I wanted to tell you is that we have people who have not who are watching this channel for the first time. We have a WhatsApp group where we discuss a lot of important things regarding the CAT exam. A lot of other articles which are not included in the YouTube are discussed in the WhatsApp group, and you can also ask all your doubts regarding the questions that we are discussing here or any other doubts in the WhatsApp group. So the link of the WhatsApp group is given in the description. Please join the WhatsApp group so that you can take maximum advantage of the discussions going on in the group. And if you have found the video to be useful in your preparation, kindly like, share, and subscribe. Try help me to maximize my reach so that I get motivated to come up with more videos that are on various aspects of ERC interview preparation, etc., for CAT and other management exams, so that you get a lot of benefit out of it. Thank you. Bye bye.